It's the end for Erik ten Hag as the Manchester United manager. Who's going to be the next Manchester United manager? Is it going to be Thomas Tuchel? Could it even be Jose Mourinho? That's what we're hearing this morning. These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's live show. This is a live video today, guys. But before we get into today's show, please do me a small favour. Smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 200 likes on today's show. And subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. Right, let's get straight on into it then. Obviously, everybody watched the game last night. God, it's just painful, isn't it? Like, I'm just numb watching Manchester United these days. I know what to expect. I genuinely didn't think we were going to win last night. I honestly didn't think that. I just didn't think it would have been as bad as it was. I thought 4-0, like, that's a thrashing. But what I do want to say is, fair play to Crystal Palace. They played well. Elise, he looks really, really good. I think we should definitely try and sign him. I was a little bit unsure about him before, but after seeing him last night, like, he was unbelievable. I know Manchester United are poor. I know most teams look good against us, but I think Elise looked like a quality player last night. And I think for £60 million, which is his release clause, if someone said to me, who would you prefer to have, Elise or Anthony? I'm going with Elise every single day. And I said this on my my match reaction last night. Like, as much as I like Garnacho, I don't think he's good enough yet to be starting every single game for Man United. I think he should be more of someone who's kind of thrown in here and there. I think he's better in that way as more of an impact sub. The same with Kobe Mainoo. I think Kobe Mainoo is a quality player. Like, there's only 4 players probably in our whole squad that I would want to keep after this summer. Højlund, Kobe Mainoo, Rasmus Højlund, Kobe Mainoo, Garnacho, Diogo Dalot probably, Bruno Fernandes probably. Like, so that's maybe 5 or 6, you know. But I think Elise would improve us massively. I think he looked quality last night. I think that right wing position for us is a massive problem. Obviously, Jadon Sancho doesn't look like he's going to come back. Mason Greenwood looks like he's going to be sold. There isn't anybody to occupy that right wing position. Anthony is absolutely atrocious. I'm sorry. And what I do want to say is, right, you know that I'm very much Erik ten Hag in still, and that I put most of the blame on the players. But some of the signings that we've done since Erik ten Hag has been here have been awful. I think Onana was an awful signing. I think Anthony was an awful signing. I think Mason Mount was an awful signing as well when you actually think about it. Like, we don't need Mason Mount. We have Bruno Fernandes. So unless the plan this summer is to sell Bruno Fernandes, then I don't see why we bought Mason Mount. Let this sink in for a minute, right? Mason Mount, before yesterday, hadn't started a game in the Premier League since October the 7th. 7 months ago. That was his first Premier League appearance in 7 months. And we paid £60 million for that. I mean, it's an absolute joke. What I will say, though, is fair play. What I did see of Mason Mount yesterday, he did look quite good. Like, I can see why we bought him. I don't know. Let's see what people are saying in the comment section. Aaron says, are you still Erik ten Hag in? I'm going to be honest with you, mate. I still am. But if someone said to me now that we can clear 70-80% of the squad this summer, right? And Erik ten Hag was to be sacked, I would probably take it, to be honest. My main thing now is that I want the players gone. I've said, well, it's not even now. I've said this for 6 months. Even when we were winning games, even last season, you know, like, there's so many players in this squad that need to be moved on. I made a list the other day, which I'll run through with you guys really, really quickly. But yeah, that's my main kind of concern now, is that I just worry that if INEOS sack Erik ten Hag, it will empower the players. But at the same time, I don't know. I think maybe that's a little bit of a narrow-minded thought process. Like, INEOS have got so much pressure on them to succeed at Manchester United. Everybody's waiting for them to fail. I think everybody in this fan base agrees that, you know, most of the players need to be moved on. And if INEOS are sat there and can't see the same thing, then the fans are going to turn against INEOS very, very quickly. So I do genuinely believe that INEOS will be watching those games and be thinking, we've got so much work to do. We've got to move on so many players. So I put together this list really, really quickly, right? So all of these players' contracts are expiring. So you've got Brandon Williams, Martial, Johnny Evans, Varane, Tom Heaton, and Omari Forson. So there's 6 players there whose contracts are expiring and we're not extending. They're going to go. 6 people. Then you've got Amrabat as well, whose loan is expiring. So that's 7 players. Separate to that, so you've got 7 players already that will 100% leave the club this summer because their contracts have expired. Their contracts expire in a month. They'll be gone. 7 players. Okay, that's a start. Then you move over to people who still have contracts. Donny van der Beek, Victor Lindelof, Pellistri, Hannibal Mejbri, Casemiro, Ericsson, Mason Greenwood, and Jadon Sancho. That's another 8 players. And I don't think anybody in that list are controversial. I think most people in the fan base would agree that all of those names that I just read out should be going this summer. Let me know if you agree. So that's 15 players there already. 15 players. And we're not even talking about the Maguires, the McTominays, the Brunos, the Rashfords, the Antonys. Like, we're not even going down that route. I didn't even include Wan-Bissaka on that list either. So there's absolutely no excuses for INEOS this summer to get rid of, I think, 15 players, minimum. I've just read out 15 names there, and there isn't a single one of those names where I'm questioning whether they should leave. And I've not even brought into the mix the Rashfords, the Brunos, the people like that, because I think the foundation needs to be to get rid of the really poor players, the older players, the people whose contracts are gone. Get rid of all of them. And then if a massive offer comes in for Rashford, obviously you have to consider it. But my first point of call, if I was INEOS, would not be to get rid of Rashford. It would be to get rid of the Donny van der Beeks, the Lindelofs, the Hannibals, the Casemiros, the Ericssons, etc., etc. Because, like, they're offering us nothing. Rashford does offer us something. I know he gets a lot of criticism. But yeah, let's see what people are saying in the chat, though. Robbo says, who would you bring in? Who would I bring in? I mean, my number one target would be Zidane, probably. He would be the number one target for me. Like, there isn't that many options out there. Obviously, Lopetegui's going to West Ham. Roberto De Zerbi, I don't really rate that much, to be honest. Who else is there? I mean, Mourinho, no. We'll talk about Mourinho in a minute. Conte, no, definitely not. Graham Potter, no, definitely not. It looks like he's going to Ajax. Gareth Southgate, no, definitely not. There isn't really many options out there, to be honest. There really, really isn't. So for me, it would have to be Zinedine Zidane. He has to be the number one option. He has to be the number one target. Obviously, we've got Jean-Claude Blanc, who supposedly has a good relationship with what's he called? With Zidane. So we need them to get to work and to actually, get on with stuff. Somebody in the chat saying, what about Nagelsmann? Nagelsmann's already committed himself to the German team for another year, so he's not an option. There honestly is not that many options. Let's have a look at what the odds are saying this morning. Everyone who's just joined, please smash a like on the video. Let's try and see 200 likes on today's. This is a live video as well, guys. So if you want to get some comments in, I will try and read some out and all the rest of it. So make sure you get your comments in. I don't do live videos as much anymore just because, I'll be honest, I found this season extremely draining as a Man United fan. So the number one favourite in the bookies this morning is Thomas Tuchel. He's the odds-on favourite to become the next Manchester United manager. Then it's Gareth Southgate, second favourite, Graham Potter third, Roberto De Zerbi fourth, and Zinedine Zidane fifth. So those are kind of the options that we have out there. Obviously, there's people like Kieran McKenna, and I think it's too soon for people like that, to be honest. But of those 5 people, who would you go for? I'll repeat it again really quickly. So the 5 options that are the number one odds in the bookies this morning is Thomas Tuchel, Gareth Southgate, Graham Potter, Roberto De Zerbi, and Zinedine Zidane. So for me, my order would be this. Zinedine Zidane, number one priority. Thomas Tuchel, second. I'd go Roberto De Zerbi, third. Graham Potter, fourth. And Gareth Southgate, last. That would be my order. I would probably be somewhat happy if Zinedine Zidane was the manager, But all the rest of them, I'm not really excited about. I think if someone said to me now, right, Kieran, INEOS are going to get rid of all of the players you just mentioned, 15 players, plus some others. I didn't even include people like Harry Maguire on that list. I didn't include McTominay. I didn't include Luke Shaw, who's injury prone. My list is pretty uncontroversial. Rashford stays, Bruno stays, Mason Mount stays. So I don't think my list was that unrealistic. I think that would be the absolute bare minimum. That's what I'm gonna come back to this video after the transfer window, and if all of those players that I've just listed are still at the club, or some of them are still at the club, I'm gonna be asking serious question marks about INEOS, because every one of us sat here today will agree with the list I've just said. There isn't a single controversial name in there. There isn't, and there's no singling players out or ganging up on one player. I've gone with 15 players who I don't want to say deserve, but are either past their best, are on too much wages, and just aren't at the level of Manchester United. If they're not of the level of Manchester United, or at least at the level we want to be, then move them on. It's as simple as that. Let's see what else. Somebody's saying Hansi Flick. Hansi Flick. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. But does it really excite you that much, Hansi Flick? It doesn't really excite me, I'll be honest. Like, it is a good option. Like, thanks for the suggestion, Hansi Flick, yeah. Anita says, in an interview yesterday, Erik ten Hag said that we are one of the most attacking and dynamic playing teams in the Premier League. The guy is delusional. The thing is, right, Anita, I think the problem with Manchester United being the manager is that there is a certain level of expectation from the club and from the brands and from the sponsorships that the managers a lot of the time have to say things they don't truly believe. And that's why Mourinho got sacked, because he started speaking the truth. And I think that, you know, you've seen, as an example here, let me give you an example, right? So you've got, I'm trying to think of his name. My brain's gone. My brain is literally, literally after the game yesterday, my brain, what was his name? I can see his face, but I can't think of the name, you know? Let's have a quick look. Okay, my brain's back. Mauricio Pochettino, after the game a couple of days ago, right? He came out and said, Ange Postecoglou. My brain's a bit scattered this morning. Ange Postecoglou came out and said that most of the players in his squad will be moved on this summer. They don't suit his style of play. And if they want to achieve anything, they need to sell a lot of players. That's what we need Erik ten Hag to say. Because at the moment, as somebody said in the chat, Erik ten Hag is coming out saying, my team is playing dynamic football. We're building on something. We've got a great squad of players, right? And I think that that's because of the club's pressure with the media and with the sponsors, that Man United managers aren't allowed to speak the truth. We know that. We've heard that with Van Gaal when he, you know, after they have to be very reserved. They can't really like say what they really think. Whereas I think with Chelsea, it's always been a bit more controversial, hasn't it? Like, Chelsea managers have always been quite outspoken. They've always kind of clashed with the media. And that's my only concern. Like, if Erik ten Hag genuinely thinks that these players are going somewhere, then I would sack him today. I would sack him right now. But I think he's just saying that because he's effectively been told to. Because the thing you have to remember is, right, if we want to sell these players, they've all got a value. If Erik ten Hag comes out and says, all of these players are crap, I want them gone, then every club in the summer is going to hear that and say, okay, well, he's worth 20 million, but you've just publicly said that he's crap. We'll give you 5, you know? And I think that you have to be very, very careful, don't you, with not devaluing your players. So I think that that's the truth. I would be honestly shocked if Erik ten Hag thinks that these players are good enough, because obviously he did an interview with Gary Neville a couple of days ago, and he said that effectively he doesn't have the players to play his style of football. So he kind of is starting to hint at what I'm saying here. But yeah, let's see what else people have got in the comments section. Fred says, why don't we go for someone like Kieran McKenna? I don't know, mate, to be honest. I think it's too soon for Kieran McKenna, being completely honest with you. Kieran McKenna's obviously done incredible at Ipswich, back-to-back promotions from the League One to the Championship and now to the Premier League. But I think it's a little bit too soon for Kieran McKenna, being completely honest. And like, do you honestly think that another manager would have got more out of that set of players last night? I don't think so, personally. Red Devil TV says, these set of players should be good enough to beat Coventry without extra time or pens, or not getting dominated by Burnley at home, or get hammered by Bournemouth at home, or Brentford, or Liverpool. But they're not, though, mate. We know that. They're not good enough. Like, you go into every single game now, as a Manchester United fan, expecting to lose, realistically. Like, I honestly go into every game expecting to lose now, or at least to draw. There is no guaranteed wins anymore for Manchester United, especially with these set of players. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very difficult one. But moving over to Mourinho, the headline this morning is that apparently Mourinho wants to come in and take the Manchester United job. But, God, if Mourinho comes back... The headline this morning is that Mourinho has told his team around him that he would walk to Manchester to manage Manchester United for a second time, having been sacked by the club in 2018. So Mourinho's desperate for the job. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you gave Mourinho the job for the FA Cup final and he got a result somehow. Like, that would not be surprised me at all. But Yeah, I think the most likely option for us here is going to be Thomas Tuchel. I imagine that Thomas Tuchel will come to Manchester United and Erik ten Hag will go to Bayern Munich. But Bayern Munich want Erik ten Hag. What does that mean? I don't know. You know what? I'll be honest. I am looking forward to the summer. I'm looking forward to the transfer related stories, and I'm looking forward to hopefully the biggest clear out in probably our history. Like that needs to happen this summer. That's all I really have to look forward to now, because going into the game against Arsenal, we'll probably lose. Newcastle will probably lose. Brighton will probably lose. Man City will probably lose. Like, we're not going to get European football, I don't think, unless we beat Man City in the final, which I think is extremely unlikely. So the only thing we can really now focus on is what the plan is going forward. I think it's easy to kind of just be stuck in the moment and being like, oh, we're rubbish, all the rest of it. But what's going to happen next? That's the big question. Red Devil TV says, you don't seriously believe that the players aren't good enough to hold out a decent result against teams I mentioned if they were coached properly? They've done this for years. It's not the first time that they've let goals leads slip. They the mentality of these players has been weak for so long. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap the video up here, guys. Otherwise, I'll just spend all morning complaining about the state of Manchester United. But thank you for joining me on the live show this morning. I will be back at 6 o'clock today. If you have enjoyed today's video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. This has been Daily Red Devil. Have a lovely day, everybody, and speak to you all a bit later.